Jim, just talking about the operation here and how long it's been going, like your staff turnover, everything, you've got the same core principle of people that I can see year on, year out.
Yes, well, you wouldn't want to believe everything you hear out there. Because back at the time when, at one stage anyway, I had Kevin Manning, Paul Carberry, Anthony Malloy, Paul, I forget his second name, he was a chap from Dublin who wrote a few winners as well.
Yeah.
And Aidan O'Brien.
Yeah.
So I had 6 people that made their names big time afterwards. But at the time when I had those, Jim Bolger has no staff. So you wouldn't want to believe everything you hear.
You also poached a young trainer's son at one stage, and he's doing all right now, Willie Mullins.
Yes, yeah. Willie was a competent amateur before he came to me, and I thought that, you know, that he'd make a good head man. So he was an amateur rider at the time, and he wasn't supposed to be paid, so we had to find a way around that. And there was no cryptocurrency in those days. But anyway, we managed it. And he came to me anyway, and he was with me for over a year. And I have to say that he was a really good worker and a good rider, and he contributed plenty. But I had Dave Downey at the same time, and Dave is still here.
Really?
Yeah.
Really, yeah. And looking back, you mentioned Paul Carberry, Tony McCoy, 2 different characters, 2 highly talented individuals, but both approached it with a different mindset.
Yeah, well, Paul was very different in those days. You wouldn't know he was in the yard.
Really?
No. And I think they all rode their first winner on canes. He was a chestnut gelding. And one of them won a maiden on him, and I think the next couple of fellas won handicaps on him. And he was the starter horse for them. You know, it was easy enough to kind of launch their careers. I wouldn't have been able to supply them with winners at the rate that they would have been expecting.
Yeah.
Kevin Manning was champion apprentice for 2 years, but Kevin could do all the light weights, whereas the other 2 were more limited. But from Paul's point of view, I suppose the only thing we can claim with Paul is his style. He definitely got his style here.
Did he? Yeah. He got tidier.
Well, you look at photographs when, like, the lads in the yard were telling him that his daddy didn't like him because he gave him a ride in the Grand National.
Nearly killed him.
Yeah. So he came to me then the following week, and style wasn't one of the attributes you'd use when you'd be talking about him. But when he left here, he had toned the iron heels down, flat back, the whole ball of wax, and he maintained that up to the very end. And, like, apart from Tommy Carmody, who was a very, very stylish rider, I'd say Paul, this is in jump racing now. Yeah. And style is not something that you would associate. I'd be shot for this. Style is not something that you associate a lot with jump riders, but Tommy Carmody had it all.
Yeah.
Charlie Swan as well.
That's right.
And Paul Carberry.
Yeah.
But definitely he got the style here.
He did, yeah. You moulded into that flat.
Yeah, but we had nothing to do with his wildness. Yeah.
You tried to tame that probably a bit, but...
Well, no, we didn't have... It never arose here. He was very quiet, yeah.
And Tony McCoy, of course, the well-told story about his leg, but are you surprised how Willie Mullins, Aidan O'Brien, of course, Tony McCoy, how well they all went on to do when you look back, or is it...
Oh, well, I'd have been disappointed if they hadn't turned out as good as that. No, obviously not. No, but it's lovely to see it. Yeah.
What does it take for them lads to get to? Is it determination, talent, or hard work, or combination of it all? Or?
Well, it goes back to the parents day one, you know.
Yeah.
Like I've always said that I just got them in there and generally didn't pay much attention to them for some months anyway, until I saw that they were keen to do it themselves.
Yeah.
And then at that stage, I would, you know, try to teach them and encourage them as well. But none of those required much encouragement. Like,
Yeah.
they were ambitious enough.
They were here for a reason.
Anthony McCoy kept it very well hidden. I didn't. He didn't give us the impression that he was quite as hungry as he became
Really?
afterwards, you know.
Yes, yeah. And Kevin Manning, you've mentioned him already.
I'm going to take an opportunity now to correct how hard I was on him. When he got the fall on the gallop, that's well documented at this stage, only the sequence isn't right. He got a bad fall on the gallop and he fractured his femur, and it was a cold, frosty morning.
Yeah.
And obviously it was when they were going down the gallop, so the horses had to come home by the road. And I went down to see him anyway. I think it was at the 5 furlong marker on the gallop. And he was bawling his head off, so I knew he was pretty bad. So anyway, I got him reasonably relaxed, and I had a quarter sheet in the Jeep, and I put it over him, and we waited for the doctor to come. Like, we have a GP down in Loughlin Bridge,
Right.
the other Tom Foley, as he's referred to around here, and he was up here in 20 minutes anyway, and I presume he gave him maybe a shot of morphine or whatever.
Yes, yeah.
And we got the ambulance for him, and the ambulance collected him at that spot on the gallop. And I remember telling the ambulance driver there were a lot of potholes in the roads. I think that was early 90s.
Yeah.
And I asked him, you know, if he could take it easy with him, that he was in a bad way. But anyway, when the book was written, so he went home then at that stage, obviously, when he came out of hospital. And when he arrived back, he was about 10 stone.
Different man.
The game was up.
Yes, yeah.
But I genuinely wanted to keep him for another year, because I reckon if he goes to England at this stage, and you know, he's going to be schooling horses over fences and also riding novices over fences, and anything could happen to him. And the last thing he would have needed was a bad fall, another bad fall at that stage.
Yeah.
And at least because he was only 18 or 19 years old at the time, another 12 months, the bones were going to be a bit harder, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, he wasn't having any of that. And I tried every trick in the book with him to get him to stay for another year, but I wasn't having any success. So eventually, anyway, I had to say to him, look, Anthony, I said, it's only 12 months ago since you were bawling your head off down the gallop. So, but the story got told that I told him that morning that he wasn't hardy enough to be a jump jockey, but that didn't happen for 12 months later. Yeah, and it was only to try to keep him for another year, because in my opinion at that stage, the last thing he needed at that stage was to be going schooling over fences. But in any case, he was strong-willed and he left, and sure, everything turned out probably 100 times better than I ever expected. I don't know what he expected at that stage. He'd probably tell you that he was going to be a champion jump jockey for 20 years in a row. But I felt that anyway, that, you know, wait for 12 months, get a bit stronger and then go.